For the thousands in attendance and the millions watching around the world, we are live and amplified. So let's get ready to podcast.
Fire it up.
So, thank you guys for coming in. We're sitting here with 2/5 of Cold Tap. Is that correct?
That's right. 2/5. Yeah.
2/5.
Yep.
So, thank you guys for coming in, sitting down. I know we've been trying to do this for a really long time. And
Yep.
probably since I first came down here, it's
Right.
It's been 4 months, I think. Wow, I've been here 4 months already. That's crazy.
Nice.
So, how did you guys get your start in music? We'll start with the real basic questions first.
Sure. So, starting as a group or as a band, or just as individuals?
As individuals. We'll start with individuals, and then we'll kind of work our way into the group, how the group came
Yeah,
in.
sure. Right on. So, I grew up in a very rural farming community called Elm Grove, Texas. It's halfway between. It's on the Colorado River, halfway between Brady and Brownwood. Yep. And in that community, every single weekend, we were at somebody else's house, frying up fish, drinking beer. Mm-hmm. I didn't. I was a kid, but adults drinking beer. And we played guitars literally from dark until daylight the next day. And sometimes it went on for a couple of days all weekend. Yep. And that's what we did every single weekend. So that's how I cut my teeth into music. Had some family members, an uncle of mine, Benny Deeds, that was Benny Deeds in the Heart of Texas band, that I really looked up to when I was a kid and was like, wow, I wish I could do what he does, So that's kind of how I got started. I laid it down for a long time in my teenage years. Mm-hmm. And then when I graduated school, I graduated with 21 people, small school, right? Yep. Went to Southwest Texas State University. Culture shock. Yep. I was like, what is this? I've never seen anything like this back in the 80s. Yep. And I got hooked up with a group of guys that were from Pflugerville. Okay. And they said, I don't know, within 90 days of being there, said, hey, we're going down to Austin to 6th Street. There's this guy playing named Stevie Vaughan. And I was like, I didn't know who that was. I'd never heard of him. I grew up on Hank Williams and Bob Wills and
Willie Nelson.
Yeah, exactly, all that stuff. And we went and saw him at Antone's. Yeah. And I'd never seen anything. I could not believe what I was seeing. Yeah. Right. And then I was like, no, I'm going to do that. Yep. May not do it like he does it, but I'm going to play music. Yeah. And I picked it back up and have been playing ever since. So,
Lauren, how'd you get?
I studied choir through school, started in probably 5th grade, went all the way through, went to college on a vocal scholarship, and then got married and had kids, so didn't sing for a really long time. Okay. And then met Dwayne. That changed everything.
How did the band kind of come together?
So, Nicole's brother was getting married. And I had suggested to her that why don't I put a scratch band together. I hadn't played in a band for a lot of years. Mm-hmm. I was a musician for hire and played for a lot of well-known names just on a hire basis. Yeah. And I said, hey, why don't I throw a scratch band together and we'll play the reception for your brother. It'll save them the money. That'll kind of be part of our gift to them. We don't have to spend a whole bunch of money. And I remembered a drummer that I had played with prior that was really, really good. And I called him up and said, hey, told him who I was. You probably don't remember me or who I am. He's like, no, I remember you. Yeah. And I said, hey, you want to play a free gig? So,
way to start a conversation.
Yeah, you want to play a free gig in 6 months? He said, and I told him what it was for. It was for my brother-in-law's wedding, getting married. And he said, man, that would be fun. Let's do that. Do you have a bass player? I said, man, I've got a bass player I've played with, knows all my music, knows all the stuff I play. He said, well, I got a bass player that I've played with for a long time. Yeah. So I'll tell you what, you guys are the machine, right? Y'all the rhythm. So let's use your guy. If
Yeah.
that's what you're comfortable with, we'll use your guy. And so we went and spent a Saturday with them and jammed. And I was like, okay, these aren't garage musicians.
Yeah.
These guys are musicians. These are the real deal musicians.
Yeah.
And I ended up calling up a songwriting buddy of mine in Louisiana. And he had moved years and years before, 10 years before, he had moved out of state. I called Jeff and Greer and said, you want to play a free gig? And he said, sure, that'd be great. And I said, hey, look, man, I've got a drummer and a bassist lined up for this little scratch band. But hey, listen, man, these guys are really good. You should take a Saturday off and come play with us. I think you would be impressed. And he did. And that was on a Saturday. We ended up playing for probably 8 or 10 hours, a long time. And he drove back to Louisiana that night. The following Monday morning, he sends me a text message, Jeff does, first thing in the morning, and says, I just gave my 2 weeks notice at work. I'm moving to Texas. We're making music because these guys are good.
Yeah.
We got a sound. There's something going on here.
Yep.
And I said, pump the brakes, Jack.
Yep.
I'm not quitting my job. But it started on let's play a free wedding gig and then we all heard the same thing. We all knew we had something together in the same room and pursued it, and this has been 3 years ago.
And we knew it was something because we ended up not playing the wedding.
Yeah. Well, and then the wedding ended up. They said, "Hey, we're gonna have a small deal. It's too much of a hassle to do this big wedding." They still got married, but did it in a different fashion. And we man, let's keep making music. You know,
nice.
So
that's awesome. Yeah, I feel like a lot of bands start off as like hey, let's come jam together. Because Jeff, the audio engineer for Live and Amplified, that is usually here at these things, his band, that's how they came together. It started off as a 3-piece that just wanted to jam because he had gotten injured and he was a bass player. He couldn't play bass anymore, so he started learning how to play drum. He knew how to play drums, but he started reteaching himself how to play drums.
Right.
And so a group of friends had a drum kit, a guitar, and a bass. And so every couple of days they'd go over and just start jamming. And then it was like, hey, I got this guy. He plays rhythm guitar. You wanna bring him in and and then they turned themselves into an instrumental band. And then there was a singer in town that was like, hey, I'm kind of looking for something to do. I used to be in a metal band and the screaming was kind of destroying my throat.
Yeah.
And I just kind of want to do something with more melodies and start really exploring what I can do vocally. And so they brought him in, and now they're just playing shows all over the place. They're getting ready to open for the Unlikely Candidates, which I believe they're here in Waco tonight or tomorrow night, and then they play in Roswell.
What's the name of their group?
GDP.
Yeah. I know Weston.
Oh, no, different.
GDB?
No, GDP.
Oh, I'm sorry. I misunderstood you. I'm sorry.
No.
Yeah, wrong band. Sorry.
Yeah, nope, you're good. Gross domestic people.
Nice. Yeah, awesome.
So it's kind of a play on like what Rage Against the Machine was in the 90s. Like they're just very anti-establishment. It's kind of, but they do it in a...
I dig it. I'm a huge Rage Against the Machine fan. Yeah.
So, so you guys are you're still in the studio recording?
Yeah, we have a little different approach. When we decided we wanted to start recording, we have a very large library of original music that dates back years, a lot of years. Some of it we've obviously updated to a little more current sound than 15, 20 years ago when we wrote it. And it's funny because we were listening to some of the original recordings when Jeff Greer and I were sitting down, just he and I in a room like we are now. We recorded everything, and so we were listening to those versus what we do now in the studio and how much it has evolved. And so this approach to the studio, a lot of people don't realize that the studio is a different beast. You can be the most dynamic live player there is, and just be an incredible live player. But when you take that into the intimate setting of a studio, it's a tell-all. there's no hiding,
Yep.
and there's no one to hide behind, and there's no faking it, and there's none of that. And so our first attempt at the studio was early on, like maybe the first year that we started playing.
About 8 months in.
Yeah, about 8 months in, and it almost split the band. I mean, it was a horrible experience.
Really? Oh.
Yeah, it was terrible, and it was a bad experience, and for us. And as we got more experience, we realized it was maybe just the specific studio we went to, and the sound engineer specifically that we were working with was actually, but it caused a division in the band almost. Yeah, and we really had to regroup with each other and say, look, we are good musicians, you know, we are decent at what we do, and just because we had a bad run, this one bad experience doesn't mean that we're not good musicians. Yeah. But we abandoned the studio for a good year and a half. And just went out and grinded the live shows, went out on the road and grinded it out, perfected and polished a lot of the stuff that wasn't polished. And then when we reapproached the recording process with today's technology, a couple of the songs that we have released now, we never set foot in the same room at the same time. Mm-hmm. We were all in different towns. Yeah. I mean, I would record to a click track. I would dump it into a drive. The drummer would go to the studio, lay down his drums and dump it into a drive. And then I would retrack guitars, and then I would send it to the producer, and he would say, I want this, that. And so it was a very organic experience. Each their own. We could do it in our own time when we felt like it, and I got around to it and had time and all that. So it was we cut our teeth back onto the recording that way. Mm-hmm. But we also found that there was something missing in the quality. More or less, my recording environment was not the same recording environment that the bass player was recording in, or that our harp player was recording in. And so our drummer, Kevin Kuklis, he played on an album for Jeff Massengill, the Massengill Project. He's from here in Waco. And Kevin said, hey, man, this sound engineer, this kid's good. He knows what he's doing. We should give this a shot back in the studio. Yeah. And so reluctantly we said, okay, but let's not get our feelings hurt if things don't go right. Yeah. And man, we have had such a wonderful experience. Mm-hmm. It's incredible. Yeah.
Because I think that's one thing a lot of musicians underestimate is the producer, like the studio tech or the producer or whoever could really dictate how good or bad the experience is.
That
in
is
the studio.
So underestimated, the statement you I mean, that is understated what you just said. It's just been night and day, the experience. Mm-hmm. And we have a producer that is not the sound engineer. Yeah. And Nate is, he weighs in. Obviously, we value all opinions. Yeah. But his ear for sound is incredible. So to have that experience and then to dump that back to the producer and let him do his magic, what he wants to do. Yeah. Right. It's been a great, great experience for us. Mm-hmm. So we decided, hey guys, instead of going in and try to just jam in 10 songs and do this album release, why don't we go old style, old school? Mm-hmm. Let's take this back retro. Let's do an A-B release. Mm-hmm. Let's do an A-song, A-side, B-side type release. Let's do 2 at a time. Yeah. We went in and it was great. Yeah. So we said, hey, it's a good formula. Let's keep doing it. Let's go in and do 2 more. We need 2 more, and then let's go in and do 2 more. And so we do our releases as like the old 45 A and B side. That's kind of how we do our releases. Yeah. Nice. So people keep saying, when's the album coming out? Yep. You're getting it a piece at a time, A and B side. So
I actually have a bunch in my closet. I have a bunch of 45s that I found them on eBay. There was like there was people selling like lots of them. So for like $20, you can get these random 45. You can get like 60 45s. And so I was just like, because I was getting really into vinyl a few years back, just because I saw it starting to resurge. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to start really exploring and just. So there was an opportunity on eBay to buy up some of these 45s, and a lot of them are scratched, and of artists that had maybe one hit song,
right?
or
Yeah, or maybe none.
Yeah. And they were just kind of, somebody's personal favorite. And so it was like an opportunity to go hear music I'd never heard before.
Yes.
And just hear it as I've never heard it before.
Yes.
So I have a fond appreciation for vinyl. I love it. And I'm really trying to get more into it. Just the issue is it's really expensive right now.
Yeah.
So.
Right. So yeah, that was our approach, just to do the A B side style releases, do 2 songs at a time and release them as singles, I guess, and not really try to focus on this mammoth project of let's try to release 15 songs at one time. And we're anxious to get it out there. I mean, we're anxious to start releasing the stuff too. So
one question I have, when you guys were doing you record, or your drummer records separately and then you record separately, what kind of technical issues were you guys running into? Were you running into like quality control issues, or what was?
Yeah, there were some quality control issues there.
Yeah.
I'm not a sound engineer, and so the frustration level for me to sit down and try to capture really good acoustic tracks, or for me even more so vocally, for me to sit down and do a great vocal capture and mic positioning and all of that, that's not me. That's not my forte. I don't even pretend. I'll tell you up front, I'm not a sound guy. And so it was a frustration level with that. And so from one day to the next, if I found in the environment that I was recording vocals in my music room, that if I pointed a vocal mic away from me, towards the back wall or towards the corner, and then one close here, right up close, a couple inches from me, that there was a really good capture there. But inevitably, my mics would move even a quarter of an inch or an inch, and it's a totally different sound. And so then if I retract something, it's like, well, that doesn't sound like the rest of the tracks. And so, it was just a frustration with the technicality of it. And being really picky. And knowing that if we go into a studio environment with a really qualified sound engineer, he'll make it sound the same every time. He knows what he's doing.
Exactly.
And so it was technical stuff like that. Little funny story on the technicality part of it. So there's a song we're fixing to release that's fixing to go into mastering called Love Don't Care. And it's a finger picking piece through the entire song. And I'm doing it to click track, and to do that straight through organically to click track without making any mistakes is a lot of takes. And so I finally nailed it and was like, oh, I got it. Yes, we've got a keeper. I play it back, and in the about minute and a half mark in the background, you hear rooster sounds off in the background. Is like, oh no. So I'm not a sound guy, so I don't know how to take that out. And
you really can't though. Like even that you can't take out. Like
we were like, just leave it.
So,
like I mean that's the we'll use that to kind of jump in. Now when you guys record, are you doing it more live style, or is it like where all of you are playing at the same time in kind of one room, or are you guys just?
So yes and no. It depends on the song. Some of our songs have very distinct and different tempos, and in order to have those changes be the same consistently, those songs, we kind of hybrid this process, and what I'll do is I'll lay down the click track guitar parts to a click track to where they're in sync and time through the whole song. I'll send those to the studio, and then the drummer lays his down, and then we all come in and we'll play to that. If that makes sense. But other songs, such as Signs, also in mixing right now. The song Signs, and actually the last 3 or 4 that we've done, we actually just show up at the studio. We get a click going where we've got the tempo, and then let's play, and we play live. So probably 90% of the songs you hear us play, they're actually live recordings of us playing live. So
nice. And so when you guys what's your creative process when you sit down to write music? Like, how do you?
I'll be honest, man. I'm a so-so writer.
Okay.
When I'm by myself, when I'm just me, when it's just me alone, I'm okay. I'm decent. I guess I could hang. But when I'm with Jeff Greer, my songwriting buddy, and he's the same way. When he does it by himself, it's okay. But when we're in the same room together, or we decide we're going to write together, there's just something
that you guys feed off each other really well.
It's incredible. We're on the same frequency, and so that creative process is I'll usually hear either a riff. I'll write a riff or a guitar riff. I'll typically write lyrics. Jeff's very masterful at, if I write lyrics, he's very masterful at hearing the music piece of it. And being able to, he's a master guitarist. And so he's able to take that and within 15, 20 minutes, kick it back and go, here's what I hear to this. Mm-hmm. And it's actually what I hear when I'm, and we don't even have to be at the same room or discuss it, but he'll send back what I've been hearing in my head as well.
Nice.
And so that's our process. I have some songs that I've written by myself, but it's such a faster paced process when he and I work together. Mm-hmm. A prime example of that. We're working on a song right now for a gentleman that owns some radio stations. Yeah. But I saw him playing this song on Facebook that he had written. Mm-hmm. This gentleman did. His name's Jody. That Jody had written, and I was just like, man, that is such a great song. That is such a great song. So I reached out to Jody and said, hey, do you mind if I produce this song?
Yeah.
And he said, it's yours. Do what you want to.
Nice.
I said, cool. If I make changes, like lyric changes and anything, I'll let you know. He's like, nope, just do it.
Just do it.
Yeah. So I did. I took it, worked on it, and I hadn't worked on it maybe 10 minutes, and I was hearing in my head, but I could not translate it to a guitar.
Yeah.
I could not figure out how to make it do what I was hearing. And so just simply sent it to Jeff and said, I'm hearing something in my head and I cannot figure out how to translate it musically to guitar.
Yeah.
And here's kind of what I'm hearing, but this is not what I'm hearing, but this is the best I can translate it. And I sent it to him, and in 20 minutes, he sent back the full everything, drums, bass, piano.
He had it.
It's done. Here's the song. Here it is. I hear it too. Here's what you're hearing. And he is exactly what I was hearing.
Nice.
So, yeah, he and I do really well when we work together. Yeah.
And you guys are primarily like a Southern rock band, correct? Or how would you categorize?
It's tough in today's market. It's really tough to fall into a category for us. We're probably going to get tons of play on the Texas music charts and break the Texas music charts in 2020. But some people would say we're Americana style. Tyler Childers would he's got some words to say about Americana nowadays, apparently. But that Texas red dirt, Southern rock.
Yeah.
You can hear a lot of different styles in our playing.
Blues, there's some jazz. There's a little bit of everything.
A little bit of everything that you can pick up as you listen to our music. But if someone had to corner us in a corner and say you can pick one, probably going to stick us in Texas country.
Okay. Yeah. It seems fair.
Because most Texas country nowadays is Southern rock style music for the most part.
Who do you guys look up to as musicians? Like, who do you draw influence from musically?
Love Martina McBride. She's amazing. Jennifer Nettles from Sugar Land. She's amazing. They both have such unique vocal styles. If you could meld them together, that would be ideal.
So hers being vocal heroes, mine are mainly guitarists, and so, I have a friend of mine who is a musician friend of mine who we agree there's two types of music.
Yeah.
People say, what kind of music do you listen to? Well, there's two types. There's good music and there's bad music. Yeah. And so I have such a wide taste in genres of music It's incredible. I'm so hooked on Billy Strings right now.
Oh, I love Billy Strings.
It drives me insane.
Yeah.
That I'm just hooked on Billy Strings.
We actually got to see him in. We were in the Florida Keys.
I'm jealous.
We were in the Florida Keys. What was this, back in 2017? I want to say. So
right.
I'm not familiar with like anything past 2017 of Billy Strings, so I'm not sure like where he was in his career at that point. But we got to see him play, and just him headlining that, because it was a bluegrass festival that we were working at.
Yeah.
And just seeing him play, and just his willingness to jump up, like when throughout the entire day a band would say, "Hey, we need an extra guitar player," or just they'd call and say, "Hey, we need an extra guitar player."
He's burning to jump up there.
Yeah, and he's up there like quicker than and then he's just looking at the lead guitarist and it's like, and just kind of following along, and his ability to learn songs just like that. It's
instantly.
Like,
yes. Yeah.
It's really amazing.
So I equate Billy Strings to another one of my, actually who I cut my teeth on learning to play style, and that's Stevie Ray Vaughan.
Yeah.
He's the current, to me, Billy Strings is the current Stevie Ray Vaughan of his genre, because he's reaching back and grabbing the young kids and a whole group of what's considered a dead genre of music, bluegrass.
Yeah.
And he's revived it and made it alive again and made it a big thing again.
Bluegrass is not dead. Bluegrass is, I've seen some of those flat pickers play.
Dude, it's a style that is it's insanely talented.
If you ever have the opportunity, first Saturdays in Pearl, Texas, there's a bluegrass festival every Saturday.
Okay.
And it's huge.
It's amazing.
It's big. It's not 10 or 15 people that show up. It's big.
Yeah. And how far is Pearl from?
It's outside of Evant, Texas.
So not very far.
It's down the road.
Nice.
Yeah.
I'll have to look it up, check it out, and
definitely
try and get my guys down here and see what we can.
So Stevie Ray Vaughan, Billy Strings, got to give a shout out to Charlie Starr and Paul Jackson, Blackberry Smoke boys, the boys from Blackberry Smoke. Those guys really hooked me from the first time I saw them play live on stage. And it's funny because we watched them on TV on a Saturday morning. I saw them on TV playing a festival and jokingly said, and they weren't playing, they were in between songs, but just their look. And because Charlie has lamb chops that go down go down to his waist nearly, and I was like, okay, we got to see these hillbillies play. Watch this. And then they played, and I was like,
wow.
Oh, okay. Holy mackerel, these boys are the real deal.
Yeah.
And so the thing is, a lot of any guitar influences. I'm Kirk Hammett, Metallica. I'm a huge Metallica. Grew up Metallica, Man of War.
They were actually the first concert I ever went to.
Right on. Yeah. So I have a pretty wide variety of tastes and people that I look to when I think who kind of crafted and molded what I do. Yeah.
One band that I've really been into lately is the infamous String Dusters.
Yes.
I got to see them I was doing a media for a music festival in Tampa.
Okay.
And they were the night. No, they weren't even the headliner. They were just like in the middle of the show, playing like middle of the day. And I'd interviewed Andy Hall, who was the dobro player.
Okay.
And so I went there, interviewed him, and that was the main reason why I went, because I was like, well, I mean, they've got so much buzz right now, and they gave me a half hour to sit down and talk with one of their guys, so it's like, I'm definitely going. Like, yeah,
for sure.
I traveled 6 hours to get there, but you know what? It was worth it in the end. And I got to see him play, and I was just like, holy cow, this is amazing. Like, it was bluegrass on a different level. Like,
yes.
I had seen all the local guys playing. Like, I know a lot of the local bluegrass players down in Florida.
Yes.
And then I saw these guys play, and I'm like, holy cow, they are on a completely different level. And so it's amazing. But we could probably sit here and talk about bluegrass all day. Like,
well, and that to circle back around to Blackberry Smoke, one of the things that as a band, our collective goal is if you go watch that band, it's actually live. It's actually as good or better sound live than what you listen to on their album.
Oh wow!
And they're incredible on their album.
Yeah.
And so their live sound is incredible. Yeah. And so we strive do that.
Yeah.
We want that incredible live sound, just like you're listening to an album.
I love going to see bands that like their albums are good, but then when you go see them live, it's a completely different experience. And I think that's how you can tell a true musician, because they're able to make that live show so much different. Like, because I've seen so many terrible shows where it's like, it feels like I'm just listening to your CD. Why'd I pay so much money to come see you live, and I could have just bought your $15 CD?
Right.
And,
Yeah.
You know, and like there's no stage presence, there's none of that, and it's just like, and
that's I mean, it's not that it's like you're listening to their CD, but it's the quality of playing.
Yeah.
Then you have the stage presence that goes with it. Yeah. And it's just the quality of sound that they have, that they put out while they're playing live. It's incredible. So we struggle to try to continually replicate that. And you know, this time around, I played with a lot of bands, man, through the years, and a lot of different musicians. And we all collectively agree as a band that none of us really carry pride.
Yeah.
We want to make good music.
Yeah.
And if that means Dwayne shuts the hell up for a minute or turns his guitar down so other people can play, you know, that's what it means. And so, and all five of us are that way. We all want to make good music, and whatever that means, that's what our focus is. Yeah.
So I know finishing up your recording and starting to release music is kind of the big goal for 2020, but what are some other things moving forward that you want to accomplish?
Yeah. So, we have, we're wanting to actually move to the next stage of our live performance. Yeah. And so, so we're moving into the, progressively, we've naturally been moving into the bigger venues. So, you know, that's for the short-term goals, is to start opening for some large name acts and get on that opening stage and start playing some festivals and little larger audiences. The fans we have are awesome. I mean, for no larger of a circuit that we play, we have a lot of fans. And so... And then replacing our booking agent that we're in between at the moment. So,
where do you guys what's your like touring circuit right now that you guys usually play? You stay locally Central Texas, or? Yeah,
we're pretty tight local Central Texas at the moment. We do some stuff Gatesville, Waco, Hamilton, Breckenridge, Brownwood, quite a bit. Just starting to move out into West Texas a little bit, San Angelo, Abilene. So that greater Central Texas area. But we're ready to start pushing this into the metro areas, the Austin, College Station, San Antonio, Dallas, Fort Worth metro areas. Yeah.
If you guys get out to like Lubbock in that area, let me know. I can get you set up. We know a couple of different musicians out there.
Nice, excellent. Yeah, that'd be great. I'll hit you up after the podcast. Our oldest son actually graduated from TED.
Oh, okay. Nice.
Yeah. We have some old roots in Lubbock there.
Nice. Yeah, because that was the one thing about living out in New Mexico. It was like I got my foot got my foot in the door in southeast New Mexico there, and then I went north and south and started working into West Texas a little bit, and you know, just getting to know the area. And then that was ultimately why I decided to move back here, because when I left New Mexico, I moved back to Florida to be closer to my parents.
Okay.
Because my dad was getting ready to retire. My dad's a pilot, so he was getting ready to retire.
Nice. Commercial pilot?
Yep, commercial pilot. Yeah. He was getting ready to retire, and my mom was concerned that my dad was going to kind of go into this weird state of, like, what do I do with my life? Yeah. And so I was like, all right. And so, like, the compromise was I'll move to the state. I'll move, because they were living in South Florida, and so I moved to North Florida. I was still 6 hours away.
Yeah.
But if they needed me to come down for whatever reason, 6 hours is a lot easier.
You weren't a 3-day drive, 2.5 day drive away.
Yeah. So I did that, and then my dad got put into forced retirement, and an opportunity to move here came up. And I was talking to my dad. I was like, hey, I moved out here to be closer to you guys. So what should I do? And he's like, well, we're getting ready to go travel. Because that, like, once my dad stopped flying, it was like, well, I'm going to go travel and actually enjoy these places I got to go to all these years.
Work.
And not work. And so I was like, okay, so you guys are going to travel? He's like, yeah, we're planning a trip where we're going to be gone for the next 6 or 9 months. And I'm like, so it doesn't matter where I'm going to be. And it's like, no, not really. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm moving to Waco. It's like, okay, I can fly into Dallas for free, like, because he keeps all his flying perks and all that stuff.
Sure,
and he's like, I can fly into Dallas or Austin or Houston, wherever you want to pick me up at. And I'm like,
so I want to interview the interviewer. What settled you on Waco?
Same thing that sold me on Roswell. People said I was crazy for doing it, and I was like,
it's the grain.
Yeah. Well, and that was one part, and then staying within the same company was a really big perk, because then I didn't have to give up all my benefits. I didn't have to
absolutely, man. Yeah.
So, and then I'd actually been looking at Waco. Like, this was one of the first places that I was looking at coming out of college.
Okay.
And it was talking to my dad. He's like, yeah, that area is really cool. Like, because my dad obviously has flown just about everywhere. So he's like, yeah, Waco would be cool. Like, I mean, it's got a lot of history. It's got a lot of...
very centrally located as well to the state. So, I mean, you've got DFW just north, Austin just south, San Antonio just over here.
And it's a lot more convenient than Roswell ever was. Because Roswell, it was 3 hours to anywhere. Sure. Like, you wanted to get over to the next town just to go to the Walmart or whatever.
Yes.
That was an hour and a half drive. You wanted to get to like a decent doctor. That was a 3 hour, so it was just like, here in Waco, I don't have to leave Waco if I don't want to.
Right. Yeah.
So that's what sold Waco on me. It was just like,
right on. Yeah.
And I'm happy to be here. So it's
good choice, man.
Yeah. So, just being here, I'm loving it and trying to get myself more involved. And
so it's been you said 4 months?
Yeah.
So it's been a good 4 months.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're just now actually getting settled in a little bit then.
Yeah, yeah. Because, I mean, when I moved here middle of October, and then it was just like, I was here for October, November, and then December I left for the holidays, and then January we went on a production run where we went up to Nashville and then back down to Florida. So I was gone for 2 weeks then. And so February was like the first month where it was just like, oh, I don't got nothing to do. All right. Cool.
Better go exploring.
Yeah.
What if that cold tap dude still wants to do a podcast?
Exactly. So, it was just one of those things where it's like, and now I can finally really start digging in to the local scene and get myself into the local scene and then start branching out from there. Because, I mean, like I said, I still have contacts out in West Texas. West Texas is still 5.5.
Oh, yeah. That's a long ways, yeah.
So, and then I got some friends up in like North Dallas and Wichita Falls and that area up there. And then I got some friends down in Houston. So, we're pretty well connected down here. And it's just kind of like, okay, cool. Let's start exploring those opportunities and see what comes of it.
Nice.
So, and then I know we got are you familiar with Corey Morrow?
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. We did it was funny because when I first moved down here, I started rekindling some relationships in Roswell with some venue owners, and they were bringing in a lot of the Red Dirt Texas country artists, and the first one was Josh Ward.
Uh-huh.
And so I called the promoter of this place called The Liberty. I was like, hey, you have the contact information for Josh Ward? I'd like to set up an interview. And he's like, yeah, man, you can do it in the main room there and be set up. And I'm like, okay, cool. So I set it up, drove 8 hours to go do the interview, came back. We ran into each other on the way back because we were both headed to the
same next place almost.
Yeah. No. He's from like an hour and a half north of Houston.
Oh, right, yeah.
And then the same thing almost happened with Corey Morrow, except they were headed out to Phoenix. And so like drove 8 hours to go interview him. And as I'm leaving, I'm like, yeah, where are you guys based out of? He's like, oh, we're based out of Austin. And I'm like, I drove 8 hours and I could have drove 2.
Yeah.
Great. So, but that was a really good, it's still a really good, connection to have because he does some stuff down in San Marcos, I think.
Yeah, he does.
So we're going to try and do some stuff with him. That's going to be fun.
Yeah.
Awesome.
But
I saw something just not too long ago about maybe a new place in Roswell that opened up that was wanting to book Texas country artists.
there's a couple of places in Roswell.
That you said that, and I had wondered if it was the.
Yeah, no, there's the Liberty. They'll bring in like regional acts, and then they'll bring in like if there's a national touring act that's coming through town and they have like a Tuesday available, they'll do it. They brought in Elvis Presley's daughter at one point, and so that was kind of an interesting situation. And then the owner of the Liberty also has a winery where he'll bring in like more local acts or people that are coming through that are just like solo or duo acoustic type stuff.
Yeah.
So
wineries are real well renowned for solo acoustic acts.
Yeah.
That's kind of their thing.
Yeah. And then there's a couple of other places that have just recently started popping up. So that's exciting for Roswell, and good for them.
Sure, yeah. Good for anyone promoting music, man. We're gangbusters behind it because we want places to go play.
Yeah, exactly. Where's one place you guys would really, or one city or venue or anything like that? Where's one place you really want to go play before you kind of call it a career?
Man, it'd be great to play the Larry Joe Taylor Festival in Stephenville.
Okay.
Back in the days, we've played crowds that were in the thousands before, but that crowd is like insanely huge.
Yeah.
Right. And so
South by Southwest would be another
South
one.
by Southwest would be another one. We almost made the cut this year.
Okay.
And for South by Southwest, we just
that's getting ready to gear up here. In
we missed the cut for this year, and they said try again next year, and they wanted more releases, more music. South by Southwest would be another one. The Chili Cook-Off in Houston.
Okay.
The World Chili Cook-Off. That's a huge show.
That's not the thing next weekend, or
yes, it's coming up pretty quick.
Okay, because one of the musicians we've been trying to work with was posting about something that she's playing in Houston next weekend, so I wasn't sure. I thought she said it was like a barbecue cook-up.
It is.
Okay.
Yeah, it's all the Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo. It's all.
Oh, okay. It's all the same thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
those that all the way to the backyard here in Waco.
Yeah.
We'd love to get on the backyard stage here in Waco. So
I haven't had a chance to make it out to the backyard yet, but I hear a lot of good things, a lot of positive things. So it's
yeah. So, and I'm sure we're in between booking reps at the moment.
We don't have a promoter, so that
slows things down a bunch for us.
It's us trying to do it between our day jobs.
Yeah, and there are lines in the sand where all of us say, look, there's only so many things we can do in a day. Yeah. And I'm not taking that on. Yeah. And then we look at the calendar and go, okay, let me make some phone calls.
Somebody's got to do something.
Let me make some phone calls. But yeah, so we're hoping with the next promoter we put on that they get us in these really well-known venues. The Backyard's a really well-known venue, man. Yeah. So
Fort Worth Stockyards would be a good place.
Yeah, Stockyards. Mm-hmm. So.
How you guys kind of touched on this, but how do you balance the day job and the musical aspirations?
So the job that I have, I actually own the company, and I've been doing it for 10 years. Okay. So I'm very fortunate in the fact that I have good agents that work for us, good administrator that works for us, and so I have a little leverage there because I know the boss pretty well. Yeah. And so I just schedule around it the best I can. I just fit it into my schedule like it's any other job I would have. Yeah. And I truly approach it like I have two jobs. Yeah. And manage it that way. Nice. Now, hers is a little different. Nicole's is.
Currently work a 4-10 schedule, so it usually leaves me Friday, Saturday, Sunday, which is music playing time anyway, so it works out well.
Yeah, we're fortunate. Yeah, our jobs work around our music careers, actually. So
that's perfect.
Charlie's retired.
Yeah, so Charlie Lake is a member of our band. Charlie Lake actually plays the organs, the keys, the banjo, the harmonica, the spoons. I mean, the guy's very, very, very talented. He's probably one of. I'm going to make a lot of harp players mad out there, but he's probably one of the best harp players in the state of Texas right now. Nice. Incredible harp player. But so he's retired. Our drummer Kevin Kukley's
Semi-retired.
is semi-retired. He
Yeah.
works because he wants something to do during the day, pretty much. So yeah, music's everybody, but she and I, music's their whole life. That's what they do. And so we just hired a new bass player.
Jared Allen.
So our other bass player. So in the music industry, it's very common.
Yeah.
Unless you're the front man, it's very common that musicians play for 2 or 3 different bands.
Yep.
Sure. Especially when you're good and you're sought after.
Yep.
And our prior bass player has been playing with Taylor Branch for a lot of several years.
Yeah.
And Taylor is starting to skyrocket right now. And he's taken off. And so Wes approached us and said, hey, before this becomes a pickle, we need to talk because there's going to be some scheduling conflicts. You guys are starting to ramp up. He's taking off like crazy.
Yep.
And I feel like I better make a choice before it is catastrophic.
Yep.
So appreciative of Wes of having that conversation. A lot of musicians just don't show up to rehearsal one day, and then you figure out, oh, we don't have that person anymore.
Yep.
Yeah. So no, Wes was awesome. He approached us and said, "Hey, we need to talk about this legitimately."
We've
He
got
handled it very professionally.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we just hired Jared Allen. Sorry, we just hired Jared. I was trying to think of their band. Jared
He
Allen
used to
from
play with 4740.
4740. Yeah.
And he played in the Metroplex with Glass Tuxedo.
Yep. And so very scholared bass player for sure. He's a classically trained musician. And so yeah,
Excited to see where that goes.
yeah, bringing Jared on, who is a full daytimer like we are.
Yeah.
A full-time worker and then musician as well. So I guess Jared's the other one that does have a full-time job, and we just.
But most of us all have weekends open, so that's when we're playing anyway.
Yeah.
That's always good when you have at least the weekends open. It makes it a little harder to set out a tour, but if you can plan like vacation time and all
It's
that.
the planning, dude. That's what it's all about. It's the planning. It's we plan far enough out in the future, typically with our booking that
If travel's involved, we plan out.
yeah, it does, and we're very respective of all of the members' schedules. That if someone called and said, "Hey, can you play the backyard this Saturday? Can y'all come tonight and do the show?"
Yeah.
We'll ask, but if somebody says they can't, there's no hurt feelings.
Yeah.
We understand completely, and that's different than the way it was when I was young growing up through bands. Lots of pride and lots of egos and lots of, well, screw that guy. He doesn't want to do it bad enough types. Nah, there's none of that in this band, man.
You know, would you guys ever do like a stripped down show? Like if one person couldn't make it to
We have.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, absolutely.
So there's like different, because there was this was the first time I had ever heard of it. There was a metal band that they'd lost their bass player for a few months, and so they were still doing shows without their bass player.
Yep, we've actually done that before, where we had a conflict of schedules and the bass player couldn't show up, and we said, "Man, let's play anyway.
Yeah,
why not? Let's do it." And short of percussion, and even then, if we're short percussion, we still do acoustic stuff, and we evolve and adapt pretty easily, pretty readily. We have small rooms, venues that they'll say, "Hey, we only do solo acoustic places," and it's like, guys, we can play any room.
Yeah,
we can play at this level, or we can play at the big level. Yeah, sure. And we've been doing it a long time.
Yeah,
and so we're seasoned enough to know when we come into a small room or a quaint room.
Yep.
It's not the same as if we're going to go play Larry Joe Taylor Festival.
that is a fact.
Yeah.
That is a fact.
We dial it down, dial it back a little bit, maybe change a few things up. But,
exactly.
Yeah.
What advice do you have for younger musicians?
So the young group, man, the young group really wants to pound technology really hard. And not go out and do. We have our kids are all musicians. All three of our boys are musicians, and they really want to get famous on YouTube and Facebook. Yeah, dude, the grind is out there on the road.
Yeah,
that's where you build your following.
Yep.
And
Dwayne has I have to share this because Dwayne has a funny story about the way he learned to play guitar versus the way his son is learning to play guitar.
Right, and that would be another piece of advice I would give the young ones coming up, is that so my son decided about a year or two ago, hey, I want to learn to play the guitar. Will you teach me? Nope, sure won't. YouTube and Google will teach you everything you need to know. Yep. But if you get stuck, then call me. I'll always help you.
Yeah.
But I don't want to be your teacher.
Yeah.
And so he does, and he still does. He'll call and say, I'm trying to figure this out in this song. I can't figure out what he's doing, and there's no tabs for it for me to cheat off of. So let me listen to it. So I'll listen and I'll play it, and I'll say, here's what he's doing. Do this. And he gets frustrated. Yeah. Dad, how the hell do you know?
I've been doing it a while. Yeah.
Well, son, I was trained by ear, right, and not trained by sight. And so when I taught myself to play, you took a cassette tape, Stevie Ray Vaughan, Voodoo Child, and you push play and play it for 5 seconds, and you push stop, and then you struggle with it on the guitar for 5 minutes and hit rewind, stop, play for 5 seconds, stop until you figure out what they're doing. I did that for a lot of years. So when I hear something, my mind already knows what's going on. My brain knows how to interpret it. And so a lot of kids nowadays don't take the time to train their ears properly, and to where again it frustrates a lot of musicians that are more classically trained, that are sight readers, or they want to see the music, that I can just, if you'll play it, dude, just play. Within 10 seconds, I'll know what key you're in. I'll know what we're doing. I'll know the progressions, and we can go. And that's because I've trained my ear. And so those two things, man, you young guys, number one, don't give up very easily, because it takes years and years and years of doing it. Number one. Number two, get out on the road, go sit by yourself in a bar somewhere and play your acoustic guitar, play those solo acoustic shows, and
in
do
front
it
of
for
nobody
a long
that's
time.
paying attention to you.
That's it. And go out and get on the road and go grind it. And
that's actually some advice. When over the holidays, we kind of took a hiatus from the Live and Amplified thing. We'd taken like 3 weeks because, it's like Christmas, New Year's.
Yeah, sure.
And, it's just like, you know what? I'm going to take a break. I'm going to shut everything off and we'll be good. But I had this idea of posting my phone number, say, hey, musicians, you got any questions, or you just want to chat about an issue you're having, shoot me a text over the holiday. I'm going to be away from social for the next 3 months. Shoot me a text. We'll talk, all that fun stuff. And I'd say I got about 12 people that messaged me over the 3 weeks. So it's like, I was expecting one,
Yeah.
So 12 was amazing.
Yeah.
And this guy, or I can't even call him a guy because he's a kid. He was like 18 years old. He was had just graduated high school that past summer. And he was like, hey man, I'm a one-man band set up, and the internet, like Facebook and YouTube, just isn't doing it. Like I'm not getting the following. What do I need to do? And I'm like, you got any kids? You married? Like, what kind of responsibilities you have? He's like, I have nothing. I have a job and an apartment. And I'm like, well, you can easily get out of your lease of the apartment, but I'd say take the holiday and up until about April, take that job, save as much money as you can. Like, don't buy any frivolous nothing. Just take the bare essentials, save up about $1,000, $2,000, take your car, take your guitar, hit the road. Just say, okay, I'm going to go
to the next town.
To the next town, go do an open mic. And if you make enough money to get to the next town, just keep going. Keep going until you've got, figure out, what your drop dead point is.
Yep, that's it, man. That's great advice. I totally agree with that. Yeah.
So I haven't talked to him since early January, but when I last talked to him, he was like, yeah, I'm saving up my money,
Nice.
Awesome.
Good.
So hopefully he does it.
I can tell the younger crowd that, and even some musicians that have been playing for a long time, you can get trapped in a rehearsal scenario or rehearsal setting or a playing for Facebook Live or doing those things, you can get trapped in that. Whereas when you go play one live show, when we go play one live show, it's worth 20 rehearsals to us, because the polish that shows up and the just everything that happens, your attention span is so much more instinctive and succinct and in sync, playing live. And that's why I tell them, dude, go out and find those $100 a night solo acoustic gigs. I'm not above those. I've been playing for 30 years.
We still go do it.
Still go do it. It's part of what you have to go do. But I know when I go sit down with just me and a guitar in a room full of 20 people, that my performance level goes to the next level. Versus if I'm doing it Facebook Live or if I'm sitting at home or if I'm in rehearsal.
Not to push back on that a little bit, but I've seen bands that do it. They're able to capitalize on both. So what they'll do is they're out doing shows, but like when they're in their hotel room just jamming or practicing, they'll turn on the Facebook Live and do it that way. So basically, while they're rehearsing and they're like, "Hey, we're working on this new song. Let us know what you think."
You know, now so that I'm 1,000% for. But so many people get sucked into this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to be a Facebook movie star. Or song star.
And you know, kudos to the people that can actually make a living doing that, but you're not going to get taken seriously like when you try and jump out into the touring scene, because it was like, oh, you're the guy that blew up on
right. And it is different. I will say it's the same. We kind of had a pre-conversation, I think, of being in the studio, and you really find out what your salt is, man. You for sure when you step into a studio, it's different. If you're not seasoned at doing it and you're not a studio musician, you learn real quick. Oh, this isn't like playing on stage. It's the same thing. It's that taking you out of your element. You find what if you're worth your salt or not real quick in front of a live audience.
Because especially depending on what kind of audience it is, they're either going to be really forgiving or they're not going to be forgiving at all.
Correct.
Like if you're playing in a little coffee shop.
So we actually wrote a song, penned a song about it that we're working on the production of it. That kind of tells that story of the story of going of being that solo act, playing in a band, making it semi-big, regionally big, and then it falling apart, and then the guy would give anything to go back and play. It's called Sunday Night Crowd because he wants to play for a Sunday night crowd on a Saturday night. That's the name. That's the hook to the song. Sunday Night Crowd on a Saturday night. Those Saturday nights when you're showing up expecting to play for 150 people and there's 3 people in the room. But you play the same show. You play it the same way as if it was 150 people there. And so, we actually penned a song about that called Sunday Night Crowd. And it's about that finding your salt, finding your worth, whether there's 3 people there or 100 people there.
To go back to being musically trained by ear. Even me doing that, like I was in band or grade school band for about 3 months before I just realized I didn't have it. So I'm not classically trained. I'm not trained by ear, none of that stuff. But just doing this, I've found this weird ability to tell when somebody's just slightly, like if they're way out of tune. I mean, it's obvious, but like, there was this, when I was living in Tallahassee, there was this girl, she was doing a short little EP, we call them EP sets. So it's like 4 songs. And I was like, hey, let's run that track again. And can you check your, I'm not sure which chord it is, but one of your chords sounds just slightly out of tune. And she's like, oh, okay, I didn't hear it, but okay. She breaks out her little tuner and she's like, oh, yeah, this one's like a little bit more than a little out of tune,
Yeah, so you are getting a trained ear.
And then a couple of days later, this guy came in and he was doing he's got a real bluesy riff to him. And I'm sitting there listening. He's on his last song and I'm hearing this weird hum come through all the mics. And I'm like, man, what is that? Like, I'm sitting there trying to figure out what it is. And about 30 seconds before he ends the song, one of his strings snaps. And so I was able to, like, it was just like.
Yeah, string rattle, yeah.
And I'm like, man, that's, like, I mean, I hadn't been doing it for that long, maybe 3 years. But, you know, it's just like being around all these musicians and just starting to.
The nuances and the things you begin to pick up on. And so my songwriting buddy Jeff Greer, he did the Johnny Cash, was it? Yeah. So they did a Johnny Cash play at the Lyric Theater in Brownwood, Texas, and he was in the band for that. He was a band member for Johnny Cash's band, and he was playing with a bunch of Howard Payne graduates that were musician graduates, right. And they are classically trained musicians. Yeah. And it was so funny because the conversation he and I were having was their mind really struggles with, dude,
anything not written.
How do you know what note to play? How do you? We don't understand. It's not you're not reading it. So how do you know where to tell your fingers to go next when you're playing the guitar? Yeah. And it's the opposite for us. And it's the same way of. Well, the same way you know when you look at that's telling you where to put your finger. We have no idea. That means nothing to. That's Egyptian hieroglyphics to us. We don't know that. So we've learned to translate sound in our head to our fingers, and even vocally, a sound in our head. It's funny because we were listening to a song we're fixing to release. It's in mastering right now. It's called 15 Years. Yeah. And Jeff had sent me the original recording of him and I sitting in a room from 20 years ago when we penned the song. Yeah. And so we're actually working on we'd penned it out, wrote the guitar music to it, but there was no vocal melody. Yep. And so we're working on the vocal melody. So to listen back to that, it's a lot of out of tune. Yep. Not in key. Yep. Because I'm searching for, because I'm an ear musician. Yep. So I'm searching for, does this fit here? Yeah. Here it is. Okay, it fits here. Yep. And listening to that, and it's like, it's just so, make you cringe because it's so bad. Well, Nicole is a classically trained vocalist. And so when I say, hey, let's practice this harmony here, she's like, no, I have to see it. I have to, if she can see it, right in key. But no, look, we'll just do it like this. We'll find it, And she's like, no.
I need to see the music. But, just over when we were down in Florida, Jeff and Brady, he's the other guy that kind of comes around. He's kind of like the all-around production guy. Okay. We got the bright idea of starting a little 3-piece. Like, I'm going to try and teach myself how to play fiddle over the next year. Yeah, so next time we go down to the Bluegrass Festival, because that's something we do every year. Like, we've got in really good with them, so we go down to the festival every year. Sure. We want to be able to at least jump in on the jam session. Like, because every Saturday night they have a picking party, so it's just like random jam sessions that break out, and so we want to be able to jump in and just be like, hey, we can hold up.
You've got to go to Pearl. That's exactly what they do there. Nice. It's an old schoolhouse. In all the rooms, there's different groups just having a picking party.
Nice. And they have the main room with the main stage.
They do. They do have a main stage.
They have to know you and know that you can play before they let you go on the main stage. Yeah. But there's all these side rooms that are all these bluegrass pick. We went to the memorial for George Allison. George Allison was a friend of ours. He was a large country and western singer back in the 70s and 80s. He was a big name back in the day, and he passed away recently. Yeah. And passed away on stage playing at Pearl.
Oh wow!
And we went to the memorial, and while we were there, in one of the side rooms, there were some older seasoned men playing blue lick chord progressions, because they were letting this 15-year-old with a dobro just play until you hear the sound that makes it sound right. They're just letting him play. And so cool. Yeah, it's so great, man. I love seeing that.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So we've been here for an hour already.
You're kidding me. You got to be kidding me.
So I wasn't quite sure how this interview was going to go. You know, just I'm always a little nervous when it's interviews and we're kind of going in a little cold turkey, like.
Sure.
But you know, it's been a really great conversation. So we had kind of talked about etiquette in the studio and being able to really know your worth as a musician if you can survive in the studio. And one of the things we really want to try and do is help prepare younger musicians, motivate younger musicians, which is why I'd asked the question earlier about what advice you had. So what should musicians getting ready to go into the studio for the first time? Like they've never been, they're going in for the first time. Mm-hmm. What should they be prepared for? Or how should they prepare themselves so they don't look like they've never been in the studio before?
Sure. So, yeah, it really depends on, I think, the instrument that they're playing. That is going to be, that's somewhat key as to different preparation.
Yeah.
Styles for sure. But learning guitarist, I'm a guitarist, so I'll speak to guitarists specifically. Learn to play with the click track and learn to be exact and learn to keep time exactly to a click track. Mm-hmm. Once you learn how to do it, it'll come back. If you set it down, it'll come back to you really quick with just a little bit of practice. But I will tell you, that's actually what caused us the big firestorm the first time we went into the studio was that the sound engineer was determined that we were going to play only to a click track. And we weren't prepared for that.
Yeah.
None of us. Jeff was, but none of the rest of us were.
Yeah.
Jeff's a one-take wonder. He can one time and to a click track, and it's perfect.
Yep.
None of the rest of us are that away. and patience.
Okay.
Don't go in with false expectations that you're going to go in and lay something down one or two times, and it's going to sound like an album. Because that's not how it works.
Yeah. Don't get your feelings hurt. You're going to have to take multiple takes.
Check your pride at the door, buddy.
Yep.
Because I'm not going to say I'm the greatest songbird out there, but I can hold a tune.
Yeah.
And some of these songs that we just laid down in the studio probably did 50 takes on certain vocal tracks.
Yep.
And Nate would stop me and say, "Okay, dude, this one word, you're a little flat. Redo it." And I'd be like, dude, it's not flat. I can hear it. And he's like, I'm telling you, I'm looking at it. It's flat. Yeah. So
don't get your redo
it. Okay, let's redo it.
Yeah. Well, because that's the difference between playing live and in the studio. When you're out playing live, you can't just stop in the middle of a song and be like, oh, that was a little flat. We have to start out because you'll never get.
Well, and the difference in live and studio is I have a lot of brothers and my sister covering for me, my wife covering for me, right? We can hide behind each other somewhat.
Yep.
Quick, I know we're out of time, but a quick story about that. We recently, probably in the last year, went to in-ear monitors instead of wedge monitors.
Yeah.
And we realized real quick, holy crap, I better step up my live game. I can hear everything I'm not doing right. There was not a monitor mix, a wedge mix, right? It was just specifically what I wanted to hear in my ear.
Yeah.
And was like, oh, man, I didn't realize I was playing quite so sloppy as I was. I thought it sounded great. Yeah. And same with studio. You just hear every little single thing that's not correct.
Yeah.
This is going on an album.
Yep.
It has to be perfect.
Yep.
Perfection is not, you're not just going to step in there and one take it and be perfect. It's rarely that happens. So be patient and check your pride at the door, and man, you get along great. So, and don't give up. If you have a bad experience like we did,
find another
find another way around it, and
try and the one to kind of piggyback off of that. Really talk with the producer or the studio tech. Like, I mean, obviously every producer is going to put on a little bit of a front in the initial conversations, but do your vetting. Make sure, like, hey, this guy is who he says he is. You get along with them, just
1,000%. So ultimately what happened in our first experience is we had a sound engineer that wanted to become the producer.
Oh.
And by the time that we were done, 8 hours later, still working on the first song, he had completely rewritten the entire song.
Oh, wow.
And it's just like, what, okay. Well, now we have a producer that's all he does.
Yeah.
And a sound engineer. And our sound engineer, we give production levity to as well, because it does affect the sound. If he hears something, I'll give you an example. The producer sent a request back for the intro of one of our songs.
Yeah.
hey, Nate, I need you to go ahead and put delay on this guitar track he wanted these effects on there. Nate said,
Nope.
Ain't doing it.
Nope.
Sorry. It'll sound horrible. I'm not going to do it.
But what's awesome is they have a good rapport too.
Yeah.
They feed off of each other.
Yeah. So you're right. It's doing your due diligence.
Yep.
And us making sure that the producer is the producer.
Yeah.
And the sound guy is the sound guy. Yeah.
And don't take the first guy because he'll do it for a cheap rate. Like make
Yes.
sure. Yeah.
Make sure you listen to
That
things
was
they
our
produce.
mistake the first time. Yeah, that was our mistake. You will get what you pay for.
Yeah.
For sure.
You know, and it's just important to make sure, like, because you're putting so much effort and emphasis. You're taking something that you've created and you're essentially handing it over like, hey, we're going to do our best to make it sure it sounds great, but it's your job to finish it. And like you're handing them over like your child.
Absolutely.
So
Very much.
Like when you're a young parent, you're not going to just hand your child over to just anybody. Like
very good
treat your
analogy.
music like your child, and like
Yeah, that's a great analogy. Oh, well, we were in the studio this last weekend here in Waco, in downtown Waco, and one of our members was retracking some stuff and laying some parts in, and began the discussion with our sound engineer.
Mm-hmm.
He does all of our mixing and mastering and stuff. That, hey, you know, I don't really like the harp piece here. Take that out and do this. And I let him talk for a minute and finally interjected and said, let's let the producer decide. That's his job.
Yeah.
He'll decide what he wants where.
Yeah.
And then if we don't like it, we can give feedback.
Yeah.
But let's us not make that decision of where we want a harp or don't want a harp, or where we do want a guitar solo or don't want a guitar solo.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because there's songs that the producer has come back and said, okay, that's a beautiful melodic solo that you played in the Mixolydian scale.
Yeah.
Now do it in the blues major scale only, and play me some type of Stevie Ray Vaughan solo over that. I'm like, over that? Yeah, over that? That sounds crazy. Yeah. What?
But it works.
But then you do it, and he knows. You know, the producers know. They know. They know. And so he may have us retrack stuff, or Jeff will send me a note and says, hey, at 2 minutes and 20 seconds in this song, take your guitar and do this effect with it, or this sound with it. And it makes no logical sense to me what he's asking for, but I'll do it. But when he gets done with it, it's a masterpiece.
Because you're not seeing the big picture. You're just looking. You're looking at one thing out of context.
That's correct.
And then once you finally hear the bigger picture.
Yes, that's correct. Yeah. So when you find that producer that you trust and sound guy that you know does good quality work, those are the key. Those are the key things, especially youngsters going into the studio. Yeah. So,
how far or how much do you have left to record since you're currently in the?
Man, a ton, dude. We've probably got 30 plus original songs.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and we're only tracked about 6 or 8 of them so far.
Like 8, I think.
Okay,
yeah, 6 or 8 of them so far.
You still got a little ways to go as far.
Yeah, we've got a few years of work ahead of us.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. We're gonna ride this wave as long as we can.
And so you're basically gonna just continue recording what you have throughout the next year or so.
Uh-huh. Yeah. So we'll plug the holes in our touring schedule with studio time. We play every single weekend. It doesn't matter if we're playing live or if we're in the studio or if we're at rehearsal. We play every single weekend. And so, because we're constantly creating, constantly producing, polishing,
again,
molding.
They have so many songs that they wrote years ago that we bring back and make them current. That's kind of our process.
Well, and it's that current, make them current is almost a natural birthing process, because we're now playing it with 4 other new musicians that we weren't playing with before, and they're like Jared. When we hired Jared, the bass player,
he hears it different.
Hey, Jared. Full creative liberty to do what you want.
Yep.
You play it the way you want to play it, dude. Yeah. And if we hear something that makes me cringe, I'll let you know.
Yeah.
Check your pride at the door. No, I'm not going to be an ass about it. I'll be very nice about it and polite about it. But you be you. Yeah, and do what you do, man. We don't want you to do what the last guy did or the guy before him did.
We brought you in for a reason.
Right
so
on.
you do what got you here.
Right on. Yeah,
you'll
that's
be fine.
it.
Yeah. That's an awesome way to
And
look at it.
with that creative input from all the members, the songs automatically evolve into this newer contemporary sound. Yeah.
Because that's the one thing I've never understood is like a band will replace like a bass player or a guitar player and they'll expect them to fill this person's shoes and play it the exact same way. And it's like, no, like
I can understand if you're Metallica.
Yeah.
Everybody knows those songs.
I get that.
But even like in Metallica, as they've kind of progressed through the years, like
they've given Trujillo full creative liberty to do what he does.
The way they
But
play,
he earned it.
like the way they play Enter Sandman now versus
back
when it first came out, it's just like it's different, and it's because
it has evolved.
The same, it's an evolved song. It's not the same lineup,
on. So
it's just awesome. As I've been kind of going through this process, like I'm starting to pick up on these things. Like before, it would have been like, oh, okay, like I wouldn't have known any of that stuff, and it just
Well, to have like for Jared to ask him to come in and do what Wes does. Wes is an incredibly experienced, highly accomplished bass player. An incredible musician. But to ask him to go to do, okay, we want you to do what he did.
That's not fair.
That's not. That's not right, fair. Man. That's not fair. It's just not. I mean, it would be asking guitarists to come in and we want you to play note for note everything. This Stevie Ray song, we want you to play it just like Stevie Ray plays it.
No.
Well, dude, good luck. Because I've been playing Stevie Ray for 30 years and I can't play it like Stevie Ray plays it. I mean, he's that's what makes him him.
It's Stevie Ray. Yeah.
So play it the way you play it.
Yeah.
And we'll find a place for it.
Yeah. So. And we'll find a way to. We might have some critiques along the way, but we'll find a way where we're all happy with it.
And I'll tell you, the reciprocal that's true. We hear stuff sometimes that when we let members have the creative freedom that
our drummer is amazing about.
Kevin's
try this
incredible live production ear. Kevin has a great live production ear. But to also say, well, then, I need to change the way I'm playing my part.
Yeah.
Because it'll fit better. I like what you're doing better. And that's the whole checking the pride at the door, right? And just make good music.
Yep, exactly. Exactly. Yeah. So what's the tour schedule looking like for the next couple of months?
Like, the next upcoming show we have is the April 18th.
Okay.
Well, we're in the studio solid up through March. And then April 18th, we're playing a crawfish boil outside of Brownwood, Texas.
Okay.
And then the following weekend is the World Championship Goat Cook-Off in Goldthwaite, Texas.
Okay.
We're the headliner there for those guys.
Nice.
And then the next show I think is Circle T. Circle T. Circle T over in Hamilton, Texas.
Okay.
Huge facility. A lot of people think that's a closed facility, closed venue. It's totally not. Completely open to the public. It's free.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful, beautiful venue. If you haven't ever been, we invite people to come check them out over there. But but all those holes will be filling up pretty quick now that we're starting to juggle the studio versus the live playing. And the bass player. We didn't want to pack our schedule full knowing Wes. We're like, let's.
But would it have been a situation where if you had gotten like a show down in like Austin over South by, he would have came in to cover for it?
Absolutely. He 1,000%.
If he had open schedule, absolutely.
Yeah, he 1,000% and still says, dude, you need me any day you call me. If I'm not on the road, I'm there. Yeah, he's awesome. He's a great guy. Yeah.
And I think that's another thing that people underestimate is keeping your relationships intact. Don't burn bridges.
Dude, you have no idea. The people you come back across even 15 years later that may have been no-name nobodies back in the day, and now they've made it. It's like, I wish I wouldn't have pissed that guy off that one time.
And that's the way I've always been a firm believer of that. It's like, just because they're working for you today doesn't mean you're not going to be working for them in 5 years.
So a quick little shout out to a young up and comer who's humping her tail off out there. Yeah. She's doing it the right way. She's out there grinding the road. Yep. She's playing those one night gigs on Thursday nights acoustically by herself if she has to. Presley Hale out of Goldthwaite, Texas. incredible young lady vocalist coming up and comer. But that's what we joke with her about.
Yeah.
Hey, she opens for us quite a bit.
Yeah.
We give her opening slots when she's available.
Yep.
And at our shows, and we always joke with her, hey, we're giving you this slot so you remember us and we can open for you when you're like
Big and
huge. Yeah, because she's going to be big.
Yeah.
She's going to be a big star.
Yeah. Actually, is when I was first out of college, I was working for a baseball team in Kentucky, and every Thursday night they'd bring in like up and coming musicians.
Yeah.
And I remembered every one of their names because for no other reason other than like that was the first time I'd ever seen like independent music, so to speak.
Yeah, with you.
And so when we started doing the live and amplified thing, I reached out to every single one of them, and only one person is still playing. So like,
wow,
just being able to stay and play is amazing in and of itself. But I'd messaged her and I was like, hey, you don't remember me, I guarantee it. But back in 2012, you played at the Bowling Green Hot Rod Stadium. You played like their Thursday night local act or whatever. Yeah. And I was the camera guy that put you on the Megatron or whatever.
oh, awesome.
And she's like, I don't remember you, but I do remember the show. Like, just because, and I was like, I just want to say thank you because you're part of the reason why I'm doing what I'm doing now, you know.
Nice.
And so hopefully one day we'll get her
That's awesome.
on the podcast or something.
You're spot on, man. Don't ever take advantage
Your paths are going to cross again
I
at some point.
promise you,
Yep.
if you stay hooked in music long enough, don't ever take advantage of either who you're working with, working for, or your openers, or it definitely leaves a lasting. I've had like big names that back in the day that we opened for that left a lasting impression on me. Most of them were awesome, and then there were a couple that were not. They didn't leave a good impression on me because they were kind of assy. Yeah, and and so just know that whether you're an up and comer or been doing it a while, just remember. Yeah. Them bridges, once they're burnt, and especially in this industry, you burn a bridge in this industry, man, it could be the wrong bridge on any given day. That could be just the death knell of you. Yeah. It's hard enough out here grinding it without burning a bridge.
Awesome. So we're going to just kind of start wrapping it up here. It's been great talking to you guys. I really appreciate you guys coming down.
Great to meet you.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah. Where can people find you on social media and like all your show dates and all like new music as it starts coming out? And all that?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. The best place to go to is our website. It's coldtapmusic.com. It's COLDTAP, coldtapmusic.com. That'll take you to that's our EPK, so it's got all of our information on it, and all of our live show, all of our pictures if you like seeing that stuff. And then our new releases and when they're coming out. Nice. Facebook the same way. You can Google Cold Tap Music and it'll bring up all of our social media stuff in the first slot. Nice. So it'll take you to Facebook, same thing, Cold Tap Music. It'll take you to us. Instagram, Twitter, all that stuff. So.
And we're going to end it on one last question. How'd you guys come up with the name Cold Tap?
That's a good question, man. That's an old name from way back in the day. We actually started. Jeff and I started playing, and we actually were playing like rock and a different genre than what we do now. Yeah. And we wanted something that I don't mean to pick on guys or pick on any groups that are out there by any means. Yeah. But there's so many groups that I see now that are so-and-so and the Hired Guns, or so-and-so and I love Giovanni, but I've seen 4 other bands that are also so-and-so and the Hired Guns, or so-and-so and the Ramblers, or so-and-so, and so we wanted something that was unique,
and it was you as a collective,
and it was us as a collective, not Dwayne Doyle and Cold Tap Band, and so.
And we've already proven the members are going to change.
Yeah, and so and it is a collective effort. I mean, dude, it's a band effort for sure. But we thought it would be funny if you pulled up to a bar and saw on the sign that the cold tap, free cold tap. And then people are like, oh, there's free beer. Let's go.
Yeah. That's funny.
No, it's the band.
Nice.
So,
that's awesome. Perfect. But thanks again, guys. I really appreciate you guys coming in.
Yes, Tom, appreciate you, man. Thanks so much.
And hopefully once I get the guys down here, we're trying to figure something out, try and find a 3-day weekend or something that we can
right on.
Come on, get them on down here, but definitely get you on.
Yeah, we'd love to do the
jam session podcast and live recording and all. It's really fun. It's really cool. It's
this what we're doing now is where I struggle. The music's where I do a lot better.
Because how this differentiates and how the jam session podcast is different. We talk more about the songs that you're playing.
Absolutely.
It's like, oh, you wrote this song. Well, what's it about? What's it about?
I got a story behind every one.
Oh, yes, he does.
and it's interesting because sometimes we get the musicians. It's like, well, I mean, I don't really have stories about the songs. I like to let the songs speak for themselves, and so it kind of makes it for an interesting podcast. So I got to just kind of shift gears, but
sure.
For the most part, we want to hear well, this song's called "Happy Till I Die." And it's like, why is it named that? What makes you happy till you die?
Yeah, right on.
So, so definitely get you on. So hopefully here relatively soon, and we'll do this again. It was awesome.
Yeah,
and especially when I can get 2 trained musicians in here, Jeff and Brady, and they can really just kind of carry the conversation into a whole different level where I can't.
Right on.
I'm only expecting some amazing things.
And us too, we can get the other members in here because I'm really, really proud to show off the musicians we play with because man, they're just next level musicians. I like to hide behind them a lot.
Awesome. Well, really appreciate it.
Yep.
And
Tom,
thank you
so much.
Yeah. Thank you everybody for listening, and we will see you guys next time.